Dani,
Yes,
thank you. Amazing to have you here with me. Thank you so much for joining me.
thank
For
you
those
for.
of you who don't know who this dude is, it's Dani Peterman, who is the senior social media manager at AppsFlyer. Person responsible for a lot of AppsFlyer's funny stuff on social media, and that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today.
Thank you for having me. I always like to give credit for the all of the team that I'm working with. It's definitely not a one person show.
There's no I in team, Dani. No I in team. So, we're going to talk about creativity and how to set up a work environment of creativity or set up an environment of creativity in the workplace, right? Because we got to talking about it. We spoke about a couple of really viral videos that you'd created in AppsFlyer. And it was like, what does it take to make it happen? Because I mean, like, hey, don't you think, or there's a notion that you're either creative or you're not creative. Like you either have it or you don't have it. If you don't have it, don't even start trying. And if you do have it, then good for you because you're one of the rare bunch. What do you reckon about that?
So generally speaking, I think it's false. Obviously, some people are more talented. Some people will have more of an inclination to these kinds of things than others. We know people who are naturally funny or naturally, witty from our friends group or family members, and others that maybe are a bit more boring or uh, you know,
Dry on the
but
drier
yeah,
side of life.
some of it is for sure some natural inclination. But I think, and I know it from my personal journey, I was never particularly creative. I didn't grow up that way. I didn't write particularly well, actually pretty bad, both in Hebrew and English. It was never like so. This is something that as time went on, and I got more interested in and got into reading more and writing more, and then later making social media my career, and even later being part of creative teams, like the design to be creative. Then you realize just how much of it is muscle, how much is something that you can train on and be better, and part of it is just doing it. Part of it is being around other people like that to cultivate this atmosphere, and even maybe bigger than that is being in a general environment that supports this and gives it space to breathe and create, and the tools to create. There's other factors involved how that actually happen on a daily basis, but in general it's definitely something that you can improve. I think I'll give you an example. I think I'm a big like football fan. I'm a Manchester United fan. I think there's this thing about like how do you build a team that succeed generation after generation, right? For 25, 20, how many ever years under the same manager. Because when you have a core group or when you have a core strategy, and then every year or two, just one person is being replaced, you can maintain the general vibe. What happens a lot of times we see in sports in general is then when a new manager comes in, replaces the entire team, then
Mm-hmm.
there's years of remashing together the players, creating a new environment. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Then it becomes a patchwork of strategy. And so I think if I take you, if you say, let's say that I agree with you that you are maybe not a creative person, I truly believe that if you come in and you're going to sit in a room in one of our creative sessions for 2 weeks, for a month, you're suddenly going to be like, oh, I had some good ideas there, like there was some things, because a lot of times it's piggybacking on other people's creativity. Like it's not just I come up with an idea and it's already polished.
Right.
It's I throw something in the air and the person next to me piggybacks on it and maybe adds something to it. And then the third person says, I like the original idea, but not really the angle. And it becomes a collaborative effort that after it comes out, a lot of times I don't even feel like it's mine, or I don't even think like it was the original idea. Maybe we completely pivoted to something new. But what came out only could have come out
With those
due to
people
the
in the room.
process. Yeah,
So,
due to the process and the feedback and the brainstorm and the freedom to express yourself, which is key.
so what is
In
that? I mean, so if you were a new CMO, a new marketing director wanting to go into a company and say, hey, we want to create an environment for creativity, okay? Where do we start? I mean, like, what does that look like? I mean, I don't know. You gave the analogy of the football team, sounds pretty reasonable to me. But like, what does it look like, and how do you get a team that isn't used to sort of like, even if they've been in the company for years, they're not used to having the creative mind frame. How do you get them into that sort of like mind frame of, come on, we've got to be creative here, people?
Yeah, so I think first of all, it's a great question because I think maybe counterintuitive, but you can't have it too free. Like there still needs to be someone, and it could be multiple people. I think over time it becomes everybody is kind of like that, but you still need someone to kind of steer the ship. The second thing I wanted to say is that you need complementary. like qualities in the room. So now the current team that we're doing most of the creative sessions in is me, that I'm obviously leading the social media efforts. We have Dani that's leading Dani Cohen leading employer brand, so she has a lot of
Mhm.
experience with those types of campaigns. And we have advertising copy expert Adnoy who comes from that world, and we have the creative director, the person
Right,
who steers the ship. So
right.
she's also managing the workflow and the design, and she's been in the company the longest. So all of us bring something different, and every once in a while we also have someone in the room, maybe the videographer, maybe a designer, maybe
Right.
our VP comes in to sit with us. So um, very much depends on what the task is. We vary the team, but this is kind of the core group, and I think we're all very different, and we all bring something different to the table. So back to your question, I have a campaign. We've never done these things before. Let's think of who would be good for it. That would be a variety. Perhaps the a content writer, perhaps the designer, maybe the videographer if you have one. Maybe just someone who's been in the company for the longest, or someone who knows the if it's something for the customers, maybe someone from product marketing can
Yeah, I was
join
going
in
to
because
say,
they
like,
know
who's
because
representing the
they know
voice
the
of the
pain point.
customer? Who's saying
Because
what the customer's going to find funny?
exactly. It depends on the campaign. Maybe it's
Right.
something purely for brand and you just need social media. That's fine. Maybe it's something for the customer. Maybe it's for employees. Then you bring someone from HR because they know what our core values and what we want to, represent to the world. So very different. But I think the core idea is a mix of people that will challenge each other, but also that will probably gel well together in terms of not being ego driven. The creative room is can be a wild place in terms of
Mhm.
like the ideas that are thrown, into the into the room,
Right.
and it needs to be non-judgmental, and it needs to be taken seriously because even if it sounds ridiculous, you need someone to say, "Wait, okay, this is crazy," but
What I like to do as well is sort of like, so I agree totally on the diversity of people. What I often like to do is have a creativity, what I call it, this creativity stash. Like I know that once a quarter we've got a filming day, right? So we basically, if any ideas that I have throughout the time, then instead of just throwing out ideas the whole time, because people aren't always in the frame of mind, I'll write them down. And then when we're having okay, we've got the filming day, sort of like in a couple of weeks' time, what are we going to be filming about? So obviously we talk about what are the requirements that we need for our campaigns and stuff, but it's also what's coming out of the creativity stash that, and often things that I thought about 2 months ago, it's like, what was I smoking? I mean, seriously, no, it doesn't make sense anymore. And that's already the first point of validation that, what seemed to be funny at one time or a good idea at one time actually isn't so good.
it's all
Yeah, I
good.
think I think you also need to have in sort of like, to begin with, management that have an appetite for creative, because I know that a lot of companies that we work with, like if the CEO doesn't like it, it's a non-starter. And then it's like, well, the team doesn't even want to offer new ideas anymore because it's like they know that the CEO is just going to slam it before they even to like get an opportunity to go live with it. So I think it needs to the idea of like having creativity or being open to creativity or to nurturing creativity has to come right from the top of like, you're going to get some crazy ideas flowing through here. You're going to have to run with some of them, even if you think that they might be a bit, you know.
Yeah, a
Yep.
lot of CEOs, I think, especially in companies in certain verticals like maybe cyber, maybe really heavy B2B, um,
Fintech, name it. Yeah.
fintech. Yeah, a lot of times they're very much geared towards, oh, let's do funny stuff. And it's like,
Yeah.
we can. Maybe it's not relevant to your vertical. Maybe it is, but only in a very subtle way. Maybe it's not obvious that humor is always the go-to. And if it is, then yeah, you'll have to take a risk and you'll have to give space and you'll have to expect that maybe
I
certain
think
things you just wouldn't understand, but
I
your
think there's
team
like
does.
very few instances where humor can never. I mean, first of all, creativity does not mean humor, right? It's not. You can be
For sure.
creative without being humorous, but I
Yeah.
think that humor definitely adds. And I think that there are very few industries, maybe sort of like stuff relating to healthcare and maybe warfare. I think even government. I mean, I think you've seen a big change in even the way government agencies promote themselves. I mean, yes, they're still uberly, painfully politically correct, but I still think that even the way they promote themselves, sort of like, has changed a lot.
But with humor, there's always risk.
Yep.
Maybe people won't like it. Maybe people just won't laugh.
Yep.
Maybe you'll invest a ton in something that just won't work. We've talked about this
Yeah,
before.
exactly. You think something was so good on paper, and then you get to the execution, and it's like, no.
That's something every social media person will tell you. Some of our best posts are stuff that we do in 5 minutes without even
Yes,
thinking about, okay, I'm just going to do it and
yes,
send, suddenly it explodes.
exactly.
And other things, you do a whole production and you're like, okay, the results are, minimal and disappointing. You never know.
So two things that I want to cover while we still have time is like, how do you measure good creative? I mean, like, what is the measure for creativity? The number of it, like the fact that it goes viral nowadays, the fact that it sort of like brings tons of people to your website, the fact that you made people laugh. I mean, like, how do you measure it?
Well, I would say that I would measure it based on the goal of the campaign. So at the end of the day, if the campaign support is supposed to bring customers, then you can do a creative, let's say, that's just funny and with not and just add a call to action at the end.
Right.
If you want people to do something, you need to, I don't know, just on the top of my head, if you have some sort of a report you want people to download,
Yep.
and you're using it, you can do a bunch of creatives with different goals, right?
Hmm.
But let's say you want people to download it, you need to talk about why it would make sense, or what would people gain from reading it.
Right.
The underlying message needs to be that there's some sort of a gold mine within that report.
Hmm.
You can't just do something funny and then at the end say, oh, by the way, we have this report. Okay.
I agree.
I remember I've seen this line once. um, the difference between the idea and the execution is 100%. The idea means nothing. There's
Right.
literally, it's not like it's 50% and 50%, or literally nothing. How many people have brilliant ideas and they don't do anything with them? So,
Absolutely.
uh, yeah,
Do you believe that you can be creative under pressure? Like 24 hours, we've got to get to a campaign idea, or we're under tight deadline. Everybody gets into the room. They're stressed because it's the end of the quarter. They've got 1,001 things to do. Like you've got trillions of things to do, and like, oh my god, I need to be creative now.
I do think that one of the hardest things is to have a blank canvas. And when people just come in and they say, do whatever, you have unlimited budget and a blank canvas and whatever you want, it's really hard to start thinking of an
Right.
idea. So, obviously, the parameters of what I want to achieve in the campaign are important as general guidelines of what I'm trying to do here. But also, time is a factor as well. I think a lot of times when you just sit and you have unlimited time, you doze off, like in your brain goes to different places. Sometimes you see that, like I feel it a lot with something trending that
Right.
happens. Like you come to work, you have the content ready for today, for this week maybe, you're already good to go. You have other things to do, and something happened that morning. There's a trending Twitter hashtag, Instagram,
You have to
whatever
jump on it.
trend. Someone comes in like, we need to do something with it now, and but you have the parameters, you know what it is, there's a trend running, there's some sort of a, and you have that environment that we discussed. So immediately we'll go, let's go to a room now, put 30 minutes on the clock, and get something out of this. And we've done it a bunch of times, and almost every time it works really great, because real-time marketing is a really, really powerful, I don't know, tool,
Oh yeah,
strategy
yeah,
in
yeah.
your in the arsenal. And you want to be part of the conversation. Actually, I think it's one of the easiest. It's not easy because, like I said, you need the environment, but it's one of the easiest ways that you can jump into a conversation where big players are also
Right.
playing. I can give you an example. There was just like, I think last month, there was a trend on LinkedIn, which is very rare, like an original LinkedIn trend, that said, people won't remember your salary, your how many
Yeah.
hours you
Yeah.
worked,
Yeah.
something. They will remember something else, usually funny.
Yep.
Some people took it in a serious way. And LinkedIn and
Right.
HubSpot and Salesforce and Slack
Yep.
and a bunch of companies jump on. I was ready to go
Right.
home. And suddenly I see it. I see two, three posts like that. And I was like, is this a trend? I search for it. I see a bunch of people start commenting. Immediately, I went to the product marketing person because I wanted to do something related to our product. And we just wrote something so difficult and convoluted to understand. It's like a whole paragraph that there's no way
Yeah.
you can
Yeah. Yeah.
understand
Yeah.
if you're not super niche within our
Mhm.
industry. And that was the joke. That as if someone will remember any of it. I don't even remember the line
Right.
now. And it just blew up. It was just text, no design, no video, no nothing, just
Amazing.
me and a product marketing person. It was just honestly 10 minutes of work and over 20,000 impressions.
Danny, it's been a blast. I think that one of the key reason why I love marketing is that it's the ultimate combination of data and creativity. You don't have to be overly creative and only belong to that camp. You don't have to be overly data driven and belong only to that camp. I think it really is the ultimate combination. I do, however, think that just like companies can't allow themselves not to have the data to back their campaigns and their activities, they can't afford to not be creative either. And I think that a lot of companies, too many companies, most companies, just expect their marketing to somehow work without the creativity element, to look the same as every other company, to look the same as every other competitor in the ecosystem. And why aren't our campaigns working? Why aren't we memorable? Well, duh. Where's your creative? And I think that if there's anything that's sort of like, I would love, and I keep on banging on about it, creative, creative, creative. And here, Danny, you've given some amazing tips on how to get the creative juices flowing and, ingrained into the company culture. I just think it's so important. It's a hugely important topic to cover. So thank you for that.
And thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And until next time.